Welcome back to the deep dive. If you've ever wanted, maybe, a shortcut into the huge world of Chinese classical literature, well, you're in the right place. Today we are cracking open the epic novel Investiture of the Gods, or Feng Shenyanyi. Now, this book is just massive. It covers the fall of the Shang dynasty, the rise of the Zhou, and it's all told through like warring immortals and gods. It's pretty wild. We're not trying to recap that whole war today, though. Our mission is really specific. We're diving into just one master-disciple pair, Ju Liu Sun and Xingsun. We want to understand how this novel thinks about, wisdom, principles versus just raw, unconventional power. Ju Liu Sun is, I think, one of the most fascinating figures. He really represents the power of careful planning, of cultivation in a world that's often just full of, well, spectacle. So we'll be contrasting his very methodical, almost high road approach against the sheer cunning of his student, who's really unusual, this earth-burrowing disciple. It's a study in maybe strategic morality.
Oh, absolutely. It's the perfect pair to look at. The sources really set them up as a deliberate contrast, philosophically thrilling. When you look at Ju Liu Sun, you're not seeing simple strength. It's more about what true wisdom actually means when you apply it to, supernatural warfare.
Okay, let's unpack that. We need some context first. Ju Liu Sun's formal standing, it's incredibly high, right? For listeners maybe not familiar with all the celestial ranks, where does he fit in? Who's his master?
Right. Yeah, his status is crucial to understanding his whole approach. Ju Liu Sun is one of the revered 12 Golden Immortals. These guys are basically the top disciples of Yuanshi Tianzun, the celestial venerable of the primordial beginning, the big boss. So this puts him firmly in the Chanjiao faction, the teaching of the elucidation. These are the immortals known for, well, rigorous cultivation, strategy, and generally sticking to principles.
Okay, so he's not just powerful. He's part of the, spiritual elite, focused on doing things the right way, cultivation. But in this huge conflict where his peers might be throwing mountains around or, I don't know, breathing fire, the sources paint him as prudent, cautious even. How does that actually work on the battlefield? I mean, how does he contribute effectively? What specifics do we have?
Well, what's really interesting is how that caution plays out.
Yeah.
He's consistently shown as having this stable, thoughtful personality. He doesn't go for the chaotic, flashy, destructive magic. Instead, his specialty is high-level talismans, mastery of talismans, and importantly, restraint, a key example. His use of the Xingsun suo. That's the immortal binding rope.
The binding rope. Okay, so it's a tool for capturing people, not for killing them.
Exactly right. The story makes a point of this. He prefers to subdue opponents rather than just, wipe them out. This helps maintain the principled image of the Zhou cause he's fighting for. So when he gets involved in major campaigns, like the Siege of Sishui Pass, his role isn't usually the first big attack. He's not the shock trooper. He's the master planner. He helps the Zhou forces by setting traps, using protective talismans for the whole army, calculating moves to minimize casualties. That's actually pretty rare in this war.
But wait a second. If you're in this epic divine war, isn't being prudent potentially? Well, a weakness. I mean, if an enemy is willing to flatten a city with a snap of their fingers, doesn't holding back to slow things down, make him maybe less effective than someone more aggressive.
That's a totally fair question. But the sources seem to argue the opposite, actually. His prudence supposedly makes him more effective because his victories are sustainable, they stick. While someone else might get a quick, flashy win, Ju Liu Sun makes sure the strategic gains actually hold up, and that the Zhou cause doesn't lose its moral high ground. He seems to know exactly when to use his strategic edge to neutralize a threat without, going nuclear. Mutual destruction isn't his game. He really represents controlled, deliberate power. It's like embodying the idea that true strength is mastering yourself first, then mastering the battlefield.
Okay, that clicks. He's like the grandmaster chess player. He's thinking long-term strategic integrity, not just flashy checkmates. Which brings us perfectly, really, to his counterpoint, his disciple, Xingsun. This dynamic feels so intentional in the narrative. It's almost like Ju Liu Sun taught him the principles, and Xingsun thought, nah, the shortcut's quicker.
Yes, this is exactly where the tension is. Their relationship really highlights this sharp difference in character. The master's principled, wise, the disciple. He's explicitly described as cunning, impatient too. Xingsun has immense raw power, sure, but he totally lacks the strategic patience his master has in spades. He's impulsive.
And his main tool for that cunning. It's got to be one of the most memorable powers in the whole book. He's not flying, he's not breathing fire, he's going underground.
Precisely. Xingsun relies almost entirely on his earth-burrowing ability. Let's go to Shangshu. He can basically travel through the ground incredibly fast, makes him almost impossible to track or defend against, really.
Wow, okay, that sounds like an amazing advantage, but how does he actually use it? Is he scouting? Moving troops secretly?
Well, the sources mostly show him using it for surprise attacks, and often they're forward. Well, they border on morally questionable. He's kind of notorious for just popping up right behind an enemy commander, usually at night or when they least expect it. Then he strikes fast with this iron rod and just vanishes back into the earth. Quick in, quick out. And a really critical point in the story is that this power, while effective, he often uses it for selfish reasons early on, or destructive ones. He actually starts the war fighting against the Zhou forces. Can you believe it? He even betrays his master, Ju Liu Sun, for a bit. And he's key in capturing some important Zhou figures, acting purely on impulse and cunning. That is, until he's finally caught, reformed, and put back under Ju Liu Sun's guidance.
Okay, now that's interesting. So the story uses Tu Xingsun's wildness, his volatility, to sort of test his master's principled strategy. If Ju Liu Sun represents the hybrid planning, caution then Tu Xingsun is like the necessary, messy part of war. The cunning you sometimes need when just being careful isn't enough.
Absolutely. The pairing really works as a narrative way to explore ethical warfare. Ju Liu Sun gives the moral grounding, the long-term view. Tu Xingsun, with his unpredictable tunneling, provides the immediate tactical punch, even if it's sometimes ethically dubious, the kind needed to break a stalemate. But the contrast really shines when Tu Xingsun gets himself injured or captured because he was too impulsive, which happens. And often, it takes Ju Liu Sun's wisdom, his superior strategy, maybe even trading that precious binding rose or other powerful talismans just to bail his student out of the trouble his own cunning got him into.
Right. So the disciple's cunning works tactically, maybe wins a skirmish, but it's strategically unreliable. It needs the master's wisdom to back it up, to clean up the mess sometimes. That leads us perfectly to the endgame for Ju Liu Sun. His ultimate fate really gives us a deep insight into the whole power structure of the Fengtian Yanyu universe. After the war's over, when all the final heavenly jobs are handed out, the distinction in Ju Liu Sun's fate is, well, it's critical, isn't it?
It's probably the single most telling detail from this whole deep dive, yeah. The novel ends with the investiture of the gods. The Fengtian. This is the big moment. Everyone who died in the war, plus surviving heroes met for service, they all get assigned their roles in the new celestial government. They get named gods.
Right, it's like this massive cosmic reshuffling. Celestial job titles are being assigned. So what happens to Ju Liu Sun, one of the top immortals, key to the Zhou victory? What's his reward?
The sources are clear. He achieved immortality. But here's the crucial bet. He was not named a god during the final enfeoffment, that big official ceremony. He wasn't part of that god naming process. He kept his status, or maybe surpassed the need for a heavenly job title. He remained an immortal.
Okay, hold on. This is the big so what moment then. If the whole climax of the novel is the investiture of the gods, why is this guy the symbol of strategic wisdom, deep principle? Why is he elevated to immortal status, set apart from most of his allies who did get named gods? What's the actual difference between being an immortal and being a god in this universe, functionally?
Yes, this is absolutely key. To be named a god during the investiture means you're assigned a permanent duty. It's like a celestial government job, for real. You're part of the bureaucracy now. Bound by duty, by fate, by the needs of this new cosmic order. You have service requirements, you have a boss probably. And many who become gods, they do so because they sacrifice themselves, or maybe because their fate just dictated that service role for them. Ju Liu Sun, though, he achieved a higher form of immortality through his cultivation, his training, sticking to his principles, that whole Changjiao path. His fate is transcendence. It's like achieving genuine enlightenment, or maybe freedom from that whole cyclical bureaucratic system. He wasn't assigned a role. He achieved a state of being, non-attachment, freedom, that sort of thing.
I see. So immortals like him are kind of outside the hierarchy of the celestial court. They're self-realized beings, truly free.
Precisely. His principled character, his strategic wisdom, his refusal to rely only on brute force, his commitment to restraint, all that earned him a reward that went beyond just the political or military outcome of the war. He wasn't destined for a bureaucratic rank in heaven. He was destined for, let's call it, spiritual liberation.
That just perfectly reinforces the whole philosophical point of his character, doesn't it? True, sustained wisdom, the kind Ju Liu Sun represents, leads to internal growth, elevation, freedom, while raw power, even necessary cunning, often results in an external job, in service, which was the fate of many who became gods.
And that contrast reflects right back onto his disciple, Tu Xingsun. For all his cunning, his tactical wins. He ultimately dies in battle. And he's named a god during the enfeoffment. He gets assigned a post-god of the earth, which kind of fits his powers, right? But it clearly shows his fate was service within the system, achieved through fighting and dying, not the kind of transcendence his master achieved through principled practice.
Wow, okay, that brings this deep dive completely full circle. We've seen the incredible strategy of Ju Liu Sun, one of the 12 Golden Immortals, his prudence, his careful use of talismans, how that secured victory while keeping to the high road. Then we contrasted that with the volatile, but yeah, tactically essential cunning of his student, Tu Xingsun, the guy who relied entirely on surprise attacks from underground tunnels. And most importantly, we've uncovered that final critical difference in their fates: freedom through principled immortality versus assignment through service as a god.
Right. And this really leaves you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over, based purely on the cosmology we see in Fengxian Yanyi. If the ultimate reward for winning the Great War seems to be a guaranteed spot in the celestial bureaucracy as a god, yet the masters of strategy and wisdom, people like Ju Liu Sun, they transcend that whole system through immortality. Well, what does that imply about the truest form of power in this universe? Is ultimate victory really about ruling the cosmos? Or is it about achieving genuine freedom from the obligation to rule?
That's a question that definitely redefines what winning even means here. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.